you never get this feeling again.
It's kind of heartbreaking, really. But for all we know, you might pick the same 11 for all 6 games and win them all.
We're going to keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
History goes on the line this afternoon in Melbourne as the Newcastle Jets look to beat Melbourne City in the Ninja A-League for the first time ever. Oh, here's a turnover. Here's Collins! And the save from Mires, but this time it's in for Newcastle and it's Kelly Brown. Oh, Lalika from here. Lancaster! And the Jets are in dreamland. History is rewritten in Melbourne.
It's Sonny! Oh, it's over the line! And Brisbane will break away. Bente Janssen getting the better of Karmas and equalising late for the Roar.
Words turning in the penalty area, shooting, what a goal! Zois's delivery, it's curling towards the back post, and it's gone all the way in! For the first time in 1,421 days.
Little deflection, tricky one, and it's a wonderful, wonderful moment for the Wellington Phoenix.
Squeezes it through.
Look who thinks about it. Oh, well, it's game, set, and match for the Wellington Phoenix.
Walsall Cam is there to wait for the volley. What a finish. Ball in from Trimis. Oh, it's straight in. The Olimpico.
Holly McNamara scores for Melbourne City. Brisbane continue to attack. Woods to Miller. Miller shoots, and it's in! Brisbane get their equaliser!
Some great finishes and a couple of mammoth upsets in round 13 of the Ninja A-League. Hello and welcome to Dub Zone. I'm Kat Haddad. Joining me is A-League's commentator Teo Pellizzeri and Sydney FC's Bianca Galic. How are you both doing?
Good, thanks for having us.
Teo?
Great to see you, Kat.
Great to see you as always. Let's get into moments of the round. I'm going to kick things off with Perth Glory's Susan Fongsencam. This incredible hit. Perth Glory have made my moments of the round 2 weeks in a row. Bianca, what's your moment of the round?
I mean, mine was actually from the same match, Peter Trimis Olimpico. Absolute belter from my perspective. It was an outswinger. So had no reason to go in the goal. Obviously got the Morrissey touch and has landed in, and she's won our side a draw. So for me, Peter Trimis, she's had a great season so far, and you can see her confidence booming.
And we flagged it last week. Peter Trimis, one of the form players in the league, and she delivered great news for the Mariners. And I'm going to choose a corner kick goal as well as my moment of the week. But not so much because of the execution of Paige Zois here scoring the goal, but for the moment, because Paige Zois was sparingly used in the last 2 seasons by Melbourne Victory. She was actually going to join Western United before they went into hibernation. Adelaide came through for her, and great for her to score the match-winning goal against her old team. Now, I don't know if that's a celebration or not. I mean, Bianca, you have a couple of former teams that you've squared off against over the journey. Where do you stand on celebrating against your old side, and would you do it if you scored against the Mariners or against Wanderers or against Canberra?
I mean, obviously Mariners being my most recent team would probably be sort of the icing on the cake there. But I guess it depends how good the goal is, right? Tap-ins, maybe not so much, but if it's, you know, an Olimpico or top bins, maybe it'd be worth a celebration.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for it if you do pop up and score against one of your former sides from now on.
All right, let's get into the action this week, and we'll start with the Newcastle Jets. An upset against Melbourne City. 19 matches and 11 years since they've beaten them. Teo, how did they break the drought?
Well, I think they broke the drought because they brought a really good attitude into this game. Their press was aggressive. Melbourne City dealing with a few absentees, but ultimately when you've got a squad as deep as Melbourne City's, that shouldn't necessarily be an excuse. And, I mean, they showed great mental toughness to come back from a decision, which I think if the referee had their time over, they wouldn't give the penalty. It's just a reffing mistake. And look at this, the press, again, catching Milena Mires and the Melbourne City defence out and really punishing them. Bianca, this was the first game to kick off the round on Friday, and Charlotte Lancaster, who had just come off scoring the match winner against Sydney FC, does it again with that hammer of her left foot. It was a really excellent performance from Newcastle.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think in terms of what they were up against, you know, you watch that penalty call and a lot would maybe disagree with that choice, and obviously the Jets had two sort of options in that moment to keep fighting for what they wanted or to, you know, give up, and they've obviously gone the other way. For me, Lancaster has just been a driving force for the Jets. She's obviously linked up really well with Ayres. You've got Sophie Hoban up top driving that as well. She's got 2 goals in 2 games. Her confidence is through the roof. And, you know, you do that against one of the top teams in the league, and, you know, your name starts coming up in lights. So
I wanted to ask you about Lancaster because she actually has a story a little bit similar to yours in that she got to go at the Wellington Phoenix, fell out of the A-League system, had to go back to the NPL, and a lot of credit has to go to Arpia Leichhardt for helping her build up her career and her minutes, and now she gets a shot, and Newcastle, she's found a new lease of life. I think, you know, you had an ACL, you had to come back through the NPL. Like, what can you say about Lancaster's journey, given that you've had it to an extent yourself?
Yeah, I think with any journey, injury, or whether it's sort of coach's decision not to play, or you just haven't been given that chance, it's sort of one of those things that you can sort of shy away and turn around and say, maybe football's not for me, maybe I don't want to be, you know, a professional athlete, maybe I want to do something else. But she, like a lot of athletes, have turned around and said, nah, this is what I want to do. I'll put my head down in the NPL, score some goals, pick up my form, fine-tune quite a few things, and now she's in the A-League scoring against the team that won the competition last year. So for me, it's really nice to see players like that turn around and have that confidence to go into the next game and sort of keep going.
It's a great example to anyone out there who is going through something similar, isn't it? Let's talk about Melina Ayres. You mentioned her briefly just before, but such a driving force in this game. We saw her in the pre-game huddle. She was a part of some of those goals as well, but she's really grown into this leadership role with the side, hasn't she?
Definitely. She's one of those players as well that we sort of mentioned has had time off football, and I guess time to reflect on what she wants to do and how she wants to make an impact. And for anyone watching the Newcastle Jets, you can see how much of a leader she is within that team. They've got a couple of you know, older experienced players, and they've got a couple of younger players, and she's definitely that player that can sort of pick up and give confidence to players like Lancaster and Sophie Hoban up top.
And it's, I think, also a product of the very bold rotation that Stephen Hoyle has gone for, making 5, 6, 7 changes to the starting 11 every game to juggle the 3-day breaks. It means that Cassidy Davis, the regular captain, the player who played over 100 games consecutively and was essentially, you know, the one leader Newcastle could always turn to, has not always been there. And so I think it's also, you know, the necessity of Melina Ayres probably came back to the league this season realising, well, hang on, I debuted in 2015. I'm now a 10-year veteran of this competition, and all of a sudden I'm now the senior one watching the youngsters coming through in the footsteps that I walked previously.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. Well, City were back in action on Tuesday against the Brisbane Roar, and it was Brisbane with another late equaliser to share the points with City. Down on troops, Teo, but they're finding a way.
Well, I think that both teams are down on troops because Brisbane Roar, well documented. Grace Quilamu, second ACL, Tameki Yallop, Zara Kruger, all out injured, you know, medium to long term at the moment. But Melbourne City had to make their own adjustments in this game. We see how Brisbane break through central midfield here with Tish Woods setting up Ashlyn Miller for the equaliser. But really, this Melbourne City team, without Laura Hughes and Leah Davidson, have had to adjust on the fly. Carly Rostbacken played a full 90 in central midfield in this game. So their system and their depth is being tested. And I feel like the Roar were good value for that equaliser. The crowd had a massive say in it. If you didn't watch the game live, watch the highlights back and listen to the cheer on the goal. Spencer Park is a great inner city venue for the Roar, and they did not let up. They were on the referee about a lot of 50-50 calls in the game, and they essentially helped cheer that ball into the back of the net. But it was a very hard-earned point for both teams, Bianca. Who do you think actually, you know, deserved to win the game if there was going to be a winner?
Look, for me, it's sort of about who wants it more as well. And Brisbane being able to come back again from a penalty, they're versing the league leaders, and I know I say that a lot, but it's always intimidating coming up against Melbourne City because they've got that reputation behind them. Brisbane have always been that competitive side in themselves, and they'll always fight the ref, you know, for every call. You know, and being at home as well, you want that atmosphere. They've got sort of a 12th man in those cheers from the sideline, from family, from things like that. So for me, I'd have to say Brisbane, yeah.
All right, well, let's hear from Brisbane's Ashlyn Miller after that equaliser.
I think Alex did a really good job with recruitment and getting everyone on the team can go in at any time and really anywhere. We have such a diverse group of people, and I think that's helped with losing those key players. But yeah, I think that every person on the team matters, and we will be using every single person and needed as well.
Ashlyn Miller there. Plenty of fans at Spencer Park supporting, you mentioned those Brisbane Roar fans, and we saw that they stuck around. The lights went out and they were still there waiting for autographs. What do you make of that?
Look, they're building a really good fan culture at Brisbane, and a lot is said about venues and the right size venue, but I feel like Spencer Park has just struck a chord. I think they hadn't played at this ground in an A-League women's game since 2016 or 2017, so they'd been away for a long time. And I mean, Bianca, you lived this experience with the fans at Leichhardt Oval when you play for Sydney FC at home, and of course the Gosford fans at the Mariners were sensational last year. What is it like when you feel compelled to sign every autograph and take every selfie? You know, like, tell us about that and the demands it puts on the players long after the actual 90 minutes of football are over.
Yeah, I mean, look, we love it. Maybe the people that we carpool with don't love it as much as we do, having to stick around another hour or two. But, you never get this feeling again. When you see younger girls, even younger boys, with your name or your number on the back of their shirt, you feel this sort of compliance that, I'll just have a chat. I'll say hey, I'll take a photo, and you see their parents' faces light up as well, just taking the time out, having a chat. A lot of these parents, they take time out of their day to bring their children, and moments like that get their kids going and hopefully create such a great culture for what's to come in football. And, a lot of stadiums would have kicked, people out after that time, and it's nice to see that Spencer Park still had flashlights going.
It was awesome to see. Well, let's look at City now. They've dropped points in their last two games. Favourites for the premiership. But Bianca, are they maybe not as far ahead as of the pack as everyone has thought previously?
Yeah, I think they definitely want to be a lot further ahead than where they are, and they probably thought these last two games they should have got more or done more in order to be ahead. If you look at the table, I mean, we're talking 10 points between first and second last, so it is quite tight, and that's sort of 3 wins that you can then jump quite a lot of spaces. And within this league, it is sort of one of those things that it's anyone's game on the day.
You faced off against Melbourne City twice already this season, and Danella Buttress, she only made a short cameo as a sub in round one, but then played the second time around when the teams met. She's out at the moment due to suffering a concussion symptoms. She's been ruled out of this weekend's game against Perth. Here's the incident where she got into a tangle with Zoe Karapetis. It's not entirely clear if it was the impact or the fall and the effects of the fall, and she actually didn't get subbed off for a little while until after this, but she's been alive wire for them this season. So they've lost the ball-winning ability of Hughes, the passing ability of Davidson, and now Buttress is out as well. Their depth is actually being tested a little bit more than perhaps we anticipated.
Yeah, and I don't think their depth's been tested this much in years. They've always sort of had players on the bench that, could start in any other team, really. You look at last year, the right flanks, left flanks, Specky, the depth was crazy. So now you're sort of looking at a younger player who didn't even have a contract to begin with at the beginning of the season, now starting on the right flank and giving them a lot of exposure on that side. You've got midfielders who are out, who have played with the Matildas, an international sort of value. And it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks for them because they've got a big schedule like we all do, and we're sort of in that second half where every point matters.
Well, they will take on Perth Glory next, but let's talk now about Brisbane, as it was their second match of the week. They travelled to Wonderland on Friday where they shared the points, but unfortunately failing to pursue that second win of the season, Teo.
This is the conundrum of both teams, frankly. I mean, Wanderers probably deserve to win this game. They take the lead late. They have this game style where their two wing-backs are their most prolific attackers. Danica Matos had the best 2 chances to score in this game, and then Ella Buchanan pops up with the goal. And then, heartbreakingly, in the last minute of stoppage time, Benty Janssen catches Amy Harrison in possession and gets the equaliser. I say it's the conundrum of both teams games. Brisbane Roar played poorly and only just squeak a draw against the bottom team, and then probably with a better team against Melbourne City 3 or 4 days later. So the league keeps everyone guessing, and you would be hard-pressed to tip this competition accurately.
That's the fun of A-League, right? It's so interesting, right? Like you play great against, a team that's got all the points, and then Wanderers at the moment, they're coming last, but, they're up for a fight. And like you said, Matos has just been up and down that right flank like there's no tomorrow. And she was inches off sort of getting that header on goal and securing that win. And at 82nd, 83rd minute, you think you've won the game, but turning off, switching off, poor pass, poor clearance, something like that can really sort of change 3 points into one.
It certainly can, and it was a costly night for the Wanderers in more ways than one, Bianca. It was Chloe Berryhill who left on a stretcher just prior to that equaliser from Bente Janssen, but a significant leg injury by the looks of it.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. Obviously, she's gone down, she's screaming, she's clutching at her knee. We obviously know in terms of her history, she's gone through an ACL and quite a few injuries in the past, and it's nothing that you want to see come into any team. She's obviously come back into the league wanting to make a mark and get into the Asian Cup and put herself in the best position to do that going forward. So it's disappointing to see, and hopefully scans serve her right. But either way, it's obviously been a pleasure to have her back in the league. We always welcome Matildas, and it brings a lot of atmosphere and a lot of fans who might not have come to the games back in.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking, really. Only a handful of games back into her return to the league, and the specialist assessment of the knee hasn't come back yet. So at the time of us recording this show, we don't have a definitive outcome on what they've found the exact problem to be. But it wasn't the only injury that Wanderers suffered, because conditioning this game, 15 minutes in, Amy Chisari picks up a cork and has to get subbed out as well. Now, I've been told it's a 50-50 chance for her to play this weekend, but I mean, they really lost their engine room, and you would have gone nose to nose with Chisari plenty of times playing against her over the years, and Wanderers lose a lot when she's not out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so early in the game, and she's not a player that goes down easy. So it's definitely a concern that the Wanderers may have, and they're definitely going to want her back in this weekend and the weeks to come. They can't really afford it now. They've had Berryhill out as well. And I think, she's someone that leads the midfield. She is young, but she leads their midfield, and she'll be necessary.
Well, they like playing the Mariners away from home, and they do head to Gosford this weekend. So wishing them both a speedy recovery and hopefully a favourable result in Gosford. Now to the drama in the Capital Clash, where Wellington knocked off Canberra 2-0, and it was Tegan Bertolicio who saw red in the first half. It was those two challenges on Michaela Woods, 2 yellows. How did you see it?
Well, I think the first one's definitely a yellow, and some people were arguing it should have been a red. But here, Bianca, did Tegan Bertolicio get the ball? Is she a little bit stiff to get sent off?
Look, from my perspective, the first one, she's obviously got her eyes off the ball. The second one, I think she just made the wrong decision in the moment. She definitely had cover behind her. I didn't think she needed to stick a leg out. She probably was going for the ball, but just in that slick moment, it's gone through her legs. And if she had maybe deviated the ball a little bit off, you could probably say she's going for the ball, but unfortunately she's taken her out again. And, when you're on a yellow, the refs are looking at you, so well, and they're waiting for that second opportunity. And if you give it to them, they'll give you what they want.
Is that what you made of it too, Teo?
Oh, I think the fact we've had to use a freeze frame, I think Georgia Ghirardello is one of the best referees in the league, so I'm willing to trust her judgment. But Bertolicio can very legitimately argue that she actually did get the ball, and then Woods runs into her as a result.
All right, well, let's hear from Canberra coach Anthony Jagaranek, who gave his thoughts after the defeat.
How I feel is we're a much better team in the first half with 11v11, and even with 10v11, we're a much better team as well. That loss today won't define our season. In actual fact, I think it'll go a different way, and it might actually mould the group even more. It's a challenge that we had to come across today, or had to deal with today, playing that many minutes, close to 58 minutes with 10 players when you add it all up. And we didn't shy away from the pack. We played proactive football. We still got in behind them. The girls were aggressive with the ball. So to still play like that shows the what we have in our DNA. So today, that loss won't define our season. Very proud.
Still confident despite the result, saying they were the better team before and after the red card. Is that how you saw it, Teo?
I think until about the 88th minute when Wellington scored. The issue is that Wellington scored their only 2 shots on target and they had to wait right until the end of the game to get the goals. I mean, this match had been meandering for long sections. I mean, Canberra probably were the more proactive team, but what does it say about Wellington that right at the business end of the game, they don't just pop up for 2 goals too, their youngsters, Zoe Benson and Pia Vlock, pop up with the decisive goals.
Yeah, I think in terms of leaving it to the last minute, the Wellington fans wouldn't have appreciated that. Canberra did well to hold them off that long, but at the end of the day, it gets to a point where you are exhausted. You've got 10 players on the field, and Canberra are a fine team, but I think they lost out having 10 players, and that really hurt them in this game. I think they would have given Wellington a good match for 90 minutes if they did have an even playing field to begin with. And for 2 of their youngsters to come up and score those goals and seal the win, it's exactly what Wellington need. They've had a not so great injury run in terms of ACLs in their squad, and it's great to see that they've got younger ones stepping up.
And they kept their heads there in the madness of the goalkeeper staying up the pitch, and
unbelievable.
Sally James had to run the entire length of the pitch back and still got lobbed by Pia Vlock at the end.
Just quickly, where do you think these 2 teams rank in the competition so far at the moment?
I think Canberra definitely deserves to be where they are, second on the ladder. They're in fine form, and like I said, if they didn't have that player down, I think they would have given Wellington a good shot for the game. They're definitely a team that we've come up against, and they're a solid team. They know what their game plan is. They do good combination play up top. They've got Michelle leading the front. Their midfield's quite tight. They're a team that deserves to be where they are. Wellington, I think they could be higher up as well, but the table itself is so tight. If Wellington get 1 or 2 wins, they could become second in the next couple of weeks as well.
Let's look now to a huge matchup this weekend, and not just for our panellists. It's the Big Blue, and it's had its fair share of huge moments throughout its history.
Final seconds. Jana Wyman under her own crossbar. It's finally beaten. Kyra Cooney Cross. The Melbourne Victory are champions for just the 2nd time.
Dumont spills it. Haley, it's in. And Sydney FC have 1 foot in the grand final. As they're called, Melina Reyes. Wonderful play. The follow-up. Zimmerman. The Victory defenders moved out of the way for Caspers. The 16-year-old.
Alex Chidiac makes no mistake.
Cuts it back. Abini for the hat-trick. 6 for Sydney and a hat-trick for Princess Abini. A shot on the angle. Natasha Dowie. Hot shot indeed. It's Alana Kennedy. And it's a pinpoint strike. Game on and Jubilee. It will be Yanchevsky with the direct shot. What a cracking goal. Alana Yanchevsky. This Big Blue blockbuster has delivered in spades over the years.
Sunday, 5 p.m. at the home of the Matildas. Bianca, a huge matchup for a number of reasons. Victory coming off back-to-back losses. Is this the time? Is this the time?
Definitely. Definitely a time for us as well to sort of flip our script and get our season underway. I know we've been saying that for a couple of weeks, and we've had some draws, we've had some losses, especially in the dying minutes of the games where we've been really disappointed to miss out on points. But for us, we're looking to change the script essentially, and I think Victory are in similar boats in terms of their lineups are changing. They've had some injuries as well. I think we have to go into this confident, and I think it's a big match, and it's where big moments happen.
Well, I'm going to circle back to Sydney's form in a moment, but you are coming off bye week. Let's go to the Victory's most recent game, which was their first defeat to Adelaide in 10 head-to-heads and in almost 4 years. And Adelaide were really up for this game. They had to absorb a lot of Victory chances. Fiona Wirtz showed her quality to open the scoring, but not before Victory had really, tested them. And I think we see this opportunity here that Kennedy White scores her 7th of the campaign. Adelaide would have been fuming to go into half-time, conceding in first half stoppage time. And then, as we mentioned off the top of the show, Paige Zoyce with that moment to win the game. That's only early in the second half, though. And Adelaide United finally break through against one of the Melbourne teams. They went zip and 6, no draws, no wins against both City and Victory last season. So a big statement for them, and they'll be absolutely chuffed about that. And the other concern Victory have got is that right at the end of the game, Rihanna Polisena suffered a broken wrist, had surgery in Adelaide, so that's going to rule her out for at least a couple of weeks. Victory didn't give an estimated return date. They actually omitted Rachel Lowe completely from the matchday squad for this one, so I guess they have a ready-made replacement. But Polisena's form has been so good this season. I guess, you know, Bianca, in your match preparation for Sydney FC, it's one less threat you've got to worry about when you prepare for the Melbourne Victory.
Yeah, definitely. I think Minnie coming from City to Victory has just sort of found her stride again, and she's already got a couple of goals and a couple of assists under her belt. Coming in to this game, she's obviously a player that we definitely wanted to look out for, and very unfortunate for her. We don't like, you know, hearing and seeing players go through that surgery, injury, the next phase of rehab. So for her, wishing her all the best. But obviously in the game, it'll be interesting to see who Victory shoot through their midfield now.
Not a bad time to be playing them, Bianca, which is why I want to ask you, what has the conversation been and the focus from coach Ante Juric? I suppose you will want to start climbing the ladder. So what's the conversation like at the moment within the club?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple of different things that we're sort of going about. I mean, in terms of our stats, one thing obviously that stands out is our possession, but possession with opportunity as well. So I think the interesting part of this league is that some teams will have 60-70% possession, but then lose 2-0. And it's that opportunity in the front third that we really need to nut out, and that's sort of been our focus this last 2 weeks. Those slip balls, shots on target, being selfish when it's needed.
I wanted to ask you about the fixture pile-up as well, because you are coming off bye week, but you go into 6 games in 19 days, away to Melbourne, away to Perth, back for a Sydney derby. That's the first half of that run of 6. Has there been any discussion of squad rotation or planned rotation similar to what Newcastle have done, or is it going to be best 11 all the way through? Because it's kind of funny, you know, fans say, oh, the players aren't robots, but then as soon as you suggest resting and dropping players, all of a sudden, we're robots. We want to play.
Yeah.
We want to play every minute of every game.
Yeah.
So is that pre-planned, or is it, to the best of your knowledge, will it just be best available 11 and we're going to just run the gauntlet with this run of fixtures?
I think it'll be an ongoing discussion. You obviously have to see how you pull up after each game. Little niggles can become big niggles, and especially when you've got 3-day turnarounds, you're travelling into Melbourne, then you're travelling to Perth the next day. There's big things coming and there's not enough time to handle it all. So I think it's not a rigid, fixed decision as of yet, but I think we've definitely got some great youngsters in the squad who can step up and will need to step up in these next couple of weeks, because like you said, although we want to play every minute, there might be times where the smarter decision might be to rest or to deload, and it might be a necessary call.
Now, the reason I ask this as well, and I, you know, we went easy on you after the 7-0, but forgive me one tougher question here. Why then would Alyssa Rose and Laurianne Moyes leave the club when it's going into its most demanding run of fixtures? Ante Juric was defiant after the 7-0 against Wellington, saying, this is my squad, and now has released 2 players. So what's the story there?
Alyssa Rose has moved into NPL. That's where she sort of saw most of her opportunity, and I think she's someone that isn't sort of 16, 17 and can sort of see herself, you know, hanging around the league. And she was very honest with us. She loved the environment. She's more than happy to sort of pop back in and keep fit, but I think for her, she wanted to pursue other opportunities as well and sort of see where that took her. In terms of Laurianne, of course, we're very disappointed that she's left us. She's a great character, a great person off the pitch as well. You know, she's got that fire in her belly that you can sort of see at training, and the shots and the plays that she can pull off are just sort of some that you haven't seen before. I think she wanted more minutes, and I think she got an opportunity and she's taken that one. She's obviously disappointed that she didn't get as much as she would have liked here, and I think for her, it was her first pro contract, and it's always different. You don't know what environment you're going to be in overseas. You're away from family. Things like that all make a difference as well.
Trust me, explaining this before the run of fixtures, when the squad is redlining, it's far better than chasing your tail explaining it after, especially if you don't get the results. But the games aren't played on paper. For all we know, you might pick the same 11 for all 6 games and win them all.
We're going to keep you on your toes, all right?
You never know, but it is great to get that insight from you in terms of the role that those two ladies played in the side. But all the best to them on their next journey as well. Let's talk about Perth, who play host to Melbourne City. After splitting the points with the Mariners, Holly Mac scored a hat-trick the last time they met, Teo. But Leah Davidson, she was a part of those plays as well, but unfortunately won't be there.
I just wonder how much Perth will be able to sort of workshop and prepare for Melbourne City now that they're coming up against a very different looking 11, because Davidson was absolutely key to providing the Mac with all 3 of those assists. I suppose Perth are going to have to really think about who's defending McNamara in which segment of the pitch. I mean, you see her just breezing past midfielders and defenders with her straight line speed. But back at Sam Kerr Football Centre, Bianca, very different proposition. You've got to go there with Sydney FC soon, so I'm sure you'll be doing similar sort of prep. But how do you think Perth will be getting themselves ready to take on the Mac?
I mean, I think Perth are excited to be at home. That's for starters. They've had a great run at the Sam Kerr football field. I think they've got to rerun that footage of their first game and sort of see where they went wrong. They definitely gave her too much space, and whether it's potentially stopping her or whether it's potentially stopping the midfield from getting it to her. Picking one of those concerns and maybe going with that might be the sort of way to deal with this, rather than trying to zone in on both, because at the end of the day, if the ball doesn't get in the front third, she can't score. So Leah Davidson obviously out, but Melbourne City are going to try and counter that. Do you then try and counter the new midfielder, or do you just sort of settle for Holly Mac?
And Perth at home, they were so close to getting a pretty hard-earned away win. They got obviously the first one against Wanderers back in round 1, but they are still right there in the mix of teams. I've got to say that as far as the draw against the Mariners, fair result? Or do you feel as though maybe with some of the chances the Mariners left on the table, they could have won? Because Rasmussen was trapped offside again a few times, and Morrissey came up with a few important saves, as we did flag. And ultimately, their only goal is from a fairly freakish corner.
Yeah, I think I've said it every year, but Perth, it would be difficult. And I've spoken to girls before, travelling week in, week out. You've got, some weeks 3 games in 1 week, and having to come to the east side every time, that's a lot of toll. I know we sort of say and talk about recovery and loading and things like that, but that does make a difference. And you see that because they perform so much better at home, and they have that confidence and they have that sort of, fortress about their football park there. In terms of their form coming away, do you blame it on, do you blame it on travel? Maybe they, weren't used to the wider field of Gosford. That Polytech Stadium is massive, and I think a lot of teams try and make it small, but sometimes it's not possible. And Mariners, it's one of the best cards on the table for them to make that wide and make those chances from the bigger pitch that a lot of teams don't experience at their home fields.
It's certainly food for thought when you do look at loads and what the quantity of games looks like. Speaking of which, let's get into the fixtures. The round kicks off with the Newcastle Jets taking on Adelaide United, which will have just occurred. We're recording before the Brisbane Roar, then taking on Canberra United on Friday, then a jam-packed weekend. Central Coast Mariners hosting Western Sydney Wanderers on Saturday, as well as Perth Glory and Melbourne City. Wellington Phoenix at 2 p.m. against Adelaide United, their second game of the week. And then, of course, the Big Blue, Melbourne Victory and Sydney FC, with our very own panellists taking part in that one. How excited are you?
I'm so excited. I love game day.
To the ladder now, with Melbourne City sitting at the top on 20 points. Canberra, Central Coast and Melbourne Victory not too far behind with the Newcastle Jets and Perth Glory. Teo, there is nothing in it at the moment.
And it looks the ladder just looks more like a ladder now that Melbourne City and Brisbane Roar finally got to double figures, and we're slowly catching up those games with some of the midweeks. So some busy fixtures, but for the purpose of finally trying to square this ladder away. But you can throw a blanket over everyone. I mean, even if the Wanderers beat Central Coast this weekend, they kind of almost latch themselves back on. But for every other team in the league, you're a 2-game winning streak out of second, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty good position to be in for the competition.
Yeah. Bianca, you made a really interesting point during the show that there's really just 3 wins separating Sydney FC in 10th and Melbourne at the top, which just goes to show it's anyone's game at the moment. But what are your games of the round? What are you most looking forward to? I'm going to assume it's the Big Blue, but you can shock me.
It's always my game. It's always the Big Blue. Come on.
Of course.
I want to see if Canberra actually do use the Wellington defeat as a galvanising experience. They get the advantage of Brisbane on a 3-day turnaround. Yes, they've got to go away, but they won away in Brisbane last year. No fear factor for them. So that's my match of the round.
I love it. Well, my match of the round is all of the matches. I think it's going to be a great round of football. Cannot wait. But thank you so much, Bianca and Teo, for joining me on Dub Zone for this week. Absolute pleasure to have you here. But of course, Dub Zone every single week. You can catch up on all of your Ninja A-League action, and we'll be back next week.